Thousands of people are flooding toward the same destination, the largest moving object ever built by human hands. The RMS Titanic, 4 funnels, 9 decks, 882 feet long, built to make every other ship on Earth look like a rowboat. The engineers who designed her used the word unsinkable without irony. They meant it. That detail is going to matter. From one side of the dock, gleaming automobiles pull up carrying the wealthiest people in the world. Industrialists, heiresses, aristocrats. People so rich they've run out of things to buy, so they're buying the experience of crossing the Atlantic in absolute luxury. From the other side, immigrants in worn-out coats clutch cardboard suitcases and crane their necks trying to see the ship that's going to carry them to America and a new life. Same ship, 2 completely different worlds, and never the two shall meet. At least that's how it's supposed to work. Stepping out of one of those automobiles is Rose DeWitt Bukater. 17 years old, white gloves, wide-brimmed hat, surrounded by servants carrying enough luggage to fill a small house. And she looks absolutely, completely, utterly miserable. No tears, no drama. Just this quiet, hollow blankness, like someone who fought a war for years, lost every single battle, and finally stopped fighting. The Titanic isn't an adventure to Rose, it's a cage with better curtains. Beside her is her mother Ruth, think elegant, calculating, weaponized politeness, and her fiancé, Cal Hockley. Pittsburgh steel money, around 30, handsome in that cold, sculpted way that tells you immediately he's never once been told no. Cal boards the ship like he owns it. He kind of does. He's paid for the finest suite on the entire vessel. He wraps an arm around Rose, and she smiles the smile of someone rehearsing a performance they've given 1,000 times. Cal reaches into his coat and produces a velvet box. Inside it, the heart of the ocean. A 56-carat blue diamond that once belonged to the King of France. It's one of the most beautiful objects you've ever seen. Rose holds it and feels absolutely nothing. Now, flip to the other side of the dock. A pub, smoke, noise, laughter. A 20-year-old American named Jack Dawson is sitting at a poker table with his Italian friend Fabrizio and 2 Swedes who don't speak a word of English. Jack has no money, no plan, no safety net of any kind. What he does have is a sketchbook filled with extraordinary portraits of people he's met traveling across Europe. The kind of easy confidence that comes from genuinely not caring what happens next. And, as of this final hand of cards, 2 third-class tickets to America. On the Titanic. He wins. He and Fabrizio explode out of the pub screaming, sprint down the docks with their bags swinging, and make it up the gangway with about 30 seconds to spare. The officer checking tickets stares at them. Jack grins, out of breath and completely delighted with himself. He shoves his way to the bow railing as the ship pulls away from the dock, spreads his arms into the wind, and shouts into the open ocean. 2 people, same ship, total opposites. Neither one has any idea what's coming. The first 2 days at sea, these 2 worlds don't touch, and Cameron spends just enough time showing you both sides so you feel the gap between them viscerally. Up in first class, everything is extraordinary. 7-course dinners on gold-plated china, a swimming pool, a gymnasium, a Parisian cafe. Private promenades where you can walk in the ocean air without rubbing shoulders with anyone beneath your tax bracket. It is the pinnacle of human luxury in 1912, and it is suffocating Rose alive. She sits through dinner after dinner, conversation after conversation, all of it orbiting the same axis. Money, status, appearances. Cal talks over her. Her mother monitors her every expression. The life mapped out for her, marry Cal, move to Pittsburgh, produce heirs, attend galas, repeat until death, stretches out in front of her like a sentence. Down in third class, Jack is having the time of his life. Cramped corridors, communal meals, nowhere near enough bathrooms, and more genuine human warmth than anywhere else on the ship. People are dancing, kids are running, someone has a fiddle. Jack sits in the middle of it all, sketching faces, laughing, completely at home. Then, one night, everything changes. Rose slips away from her stateroom. She moves through the ship in the dark, past the lounges and the smoking rooms and the promenades, all the way to the very stern. She climbs over the railing. She stands on the edge, looking down at the black water churning 30 feet below. The wind is screaming. The ocean is dark. She's not sightseeing. Jack finds her there. He doesn't yell for help, doesn't panic, doesn't launch into a speech. He just starts talking. Casually, calmly, like they're 2 people who ran into each other at a party. He tells her about falling through ice as a kid, about the shock of freezing water, about how the first thing you do is gasp, that instinct to breathe, means some part of you always wants to live. He talks to her like she's a person, which is more than most people in her life have bothered to do. She almost loses her grip. He catches her. They tumble back onto the deck in a heap. The officers arrive seconds later, and Rose, embarrassed, rattled, claims she slipped. Jack is briefly grabbed as a potential threat, but Cal, maintaining appearances, shakes his hand and invites him to dine with them in first class the following evening as a thank you. Jack gets a borrowed suit. He walks into the most prestigious dining room on the ship, and he sits down at Cal's table with the same easy confidence he'd have sitting anywhere, because Jack Dawson doesn't measure rooms by who's in them. He charms everyone. He tells stories of Paris, of Cherbourg, of the people he's drawn in fishing villages and train stations. The wealthy guests lean in, quietly fascinated by this person who has nothing and seems richer for it. Cal watches with a fixed smile and cold eyes. After dinner, Jack slips Rose a note. "Make it count. Meet me at the clock." She finds him. And instead of taking her back to the world she knows, he takes her hand and leads her down through the ship, past the second-class corridors, past the pipes and the engine noise, all the way down to third class, where there's real music, real dancing, real people. Someone thrusts a pint of beer into Rose's hand. Jack pulls her onto the makeshift dance floor. This girl who has been performing composure her entire life, completely, joyfully falls apart. She dances until she's breathless. She laughs until her sides hurt. She is, for the first time and as long as she can remember, just a person having fun. She doesn't want it to end. Over the next day, something real starts to happen between them. Jack shows Rose his sketchbooks. Not as a performance, just shares them, the way you'd share something you love with someone you trust. The portraits are extraordinary. Faces full of life and dignity, a one-armed fisherman in Cherbourg, an old woman asleep on a train, a child laughing in a Paris market. And getting bigger very, very fast. He grabs the telephone. Iceberg right ahead. On the bridge, First Officer Murdoch reacts instantly. Engines full reverse, hard to starboard. The ship begins to turn, slowly, agonizingly slowly. He takes her to the bow of the ship at sunset, stands her at the very tip with nothing ahead but open ocean and orange sky, puts his hands on her waist. She closes her eyes, the wind hits her face, and she spreads her arms wide. "I'm flying, Jack." It's one of the most iconic shots in cinema history, and it works not because it's beautiful, though it is, but because of what it means to Rose specifically. Back in their world, things are deteriorating fast. Cal has noticed the shift in Rose. He has her followed by his valet, Lovejoy, a cold, watchful man who moves through the ship like a shadow. Cal reads Rose's private journal. He finds sketches Jack made of her. And one morning at breakfast, with no warning, he flips the entire table. Everything crashes to the floor. The china, the food, the flowers. The steward in the corner freezes, and Cal leans over Rose and speaks very quietly, very precisely, which is somehow more terrifying than if he'd shouted. Billy Zane plays this moment brilliantly, because Cal isn't out of control. He's completely in control. He isn't having a tantrum. He's issuing a reminder. "You are mine. Act accordingly." Ruth takes Rose aside, strips away any remaining illusion. The family is broke, not struggling, broke. The estate, the clothes, the servants, all of it is borrowed against a future that depends entirely on this marriage. Without Cal, they have nothing. Rose's feelings, Ruth says without quite saying it, are a luxury they cannot afford. Rose hears all of this, and then she goes and finds Jack anyway. She tells him she's choosing him. He looks at her for a long moment, because Jack is smart enough to understand what that means, what it costs her, what it will cost them both. And then he says, "Okay." She asks him to draw her. She takes Cal's necklace from its velvet box, puts it around her neck, and lies back wearing nothing else. And Jack, hands slightly shaking, pencil moving with absolute certainty, draws her portrait. The drawing that will survive 84 years at the bottom of the ocean and end up in Brock Lovett's hands in the opening scene. She places it in Cal's safe herself, a private act of defiance. Then they sneak into the cargo hold. They find a brand new automobile being shipped to America, still in the hold. They climb in. They are young and alive and in love, and the ship is gliding through the calmest, most perfect stretch of ocean it will ever cross. Above them, in the crow's nest, the night is unusually clear. No moon, no wind. The ocean is as flat as glass. And up ahead, in the darkness, something massive and silent is waiting. 11:40 p.m., April 14th, 1912. Look out, Frederick Fleet is in the crow's nest, scanning the horizon, when he sees something that makes his stomach drop. A dark shape, dead ahead, enormous. Because the Titanic is 882 feet long and weighs 46,000 tons, and it does not turn like a car, it turns like a city block. It's not going to be enough. The iceberg scrapes along the starboard side below the waterline. From the deck, it sounds and feels like almost nothing. A distant rumble, a slight shudder. A few passengers come out to look at the ice scattered across the bow deck and laugh about it. Someone kicks a chunk like a football. People go back to bed. But below the waterline, the damage is catastrophic. The iceberg hasn't torn a giant gash in the hull the way most people imagine. Instead, the collision has buckled and separated the steel plates across 6 separate compartments, creating dozens of small openings through which the North Atlantic is now flooding at 400 tons per minute. Thomas Andrews, the ship's chief designer, goes below with Captain Smith to assess the damage. Andrews is one of the most quietly tragic characters in the film. He built this ship, he knows every rivet of it, and within minutes of inspecting the flooding, he does the math in his head and his face does something terrible. He pulls Captain Smith aside. The Titanic can survive 4 compartments flooding, 5 possibly, 6 is impossible. The water will rise, overflow into the next compartment, then the next, in a chain reaction that cannot be stopped. Andrews estimates they have 1 hour and 40 minutes, maybe 2 hours. And there are 2,208 people on board. And there are lifeboats for 1,178. Captain Smith walks out of that conversation a different man than he walked in. Meanwhile, down in the cargo hold, Jack and Rose emerge from the automobile flushed and laughing, and immediately run into Lovejoy. Cal's valet has been watching. He reports back instantly. Cal moves with cold, deliberate precision. He takes the heart of the ocean from his safe, the necklace Rose left there, and slips it into Jack's coat pocket. Then he waits. When Jack and Rose return to the staterooms, Lovejoy discovers the necklace on Jack. Security is called. Jack is arrested on the spot, accused of theft, protesting his innocence as they drag him away. Rose watches, helpless, as Cal watches with quiet satisfaction. Jack is taken deep into the ship, down below the waterline to the master-at-arms office, and handcuffed to a pipe. A single officer is left to watch him. Then the officer gets called away because, upstairs, the crew has just been ordered to start loading the lifeboats. Jack is alone, handcuffed, in a flooding ship, and nobody knows he's there. Up on deck, the reality of the situation is beginning to dawn on people, but slowly, unevenly, because the Titanic is so large and the damage so far below the waterline that most passengers have no idea how serious this is. The ship barely feels like it's tilting. The lights are still on. The band, yes, the band, has set up in the first-class lounge and is playing cheerful ragtime music to keep people calm. Officers are telling passengers this is purely precautionary, just a drill, but the lifeboats are going into the water, and the math is becoming visible to anyone paying attention. Cal moves efficiently. He finds an officer loading a lifeboat and offers him a thick envelope of cash. He grabs a small child he's never met, a prop, and claims her as his own to secure a place on the boat. He then finds Rose, who's standing on deck with Ruth, and ushers her toward a lifeboat, wrapping a coat around her shoulders. Inside the coat pocket, the heart of the ocean, a final gesture of ownership. Rose gets into the lifeboat. The officer begins to lower it. She looks back at the ship, and something shifts in her face, a decision forming, hardening, becoming irreversible. She looks at the ship. She looks at the water below. She looks at Cal's face on the deck above her. She stands up, jumps back onto the Titanic. Cal stares at her. She stares back. And then she's gone, running through the ship, going deeper. She finds Thomas Andrews in the first-class smoking room, standing alone, a clock on the mantel before him, his life jacket still in his hands, making no move to save himself. He is a man who has made his peace, but he snaps to attention long enough to tell Rose where they would have taken Jack. Deck E, forward. The master-at-arms. Rose runs. She's going down, toward the flooding. The lower corridors are already ankle-deep, then knee-deep. Freezing water, black and oily, flooding through the ship at terrifying speed. She passes crew members running the other way. She passes doors buckling under the pressure behind them. She keeps going. She finds Jack. Handcuffed to the pipe, water rising to his chest, completely calm in that particular way people get when they've been scared past the point of panic and come out the other side. "You came back," he says. "I couldn't leave you," she says. She needs something to break the handcuffs. She wades back through the flooding corridors, finds an axe in a glass emergency case, smashes the glass, and wades back. The water is at her chin now. Jack is treading water, the pipe the only thing stopping him from floating away. She swings and hits the chain. He's free. They run. But the Titanic is becoming a different place now. The tilt is visible, obvious, undeniable. Furniture is sliding, luggage is tumbling down corridors, water is coming from directions that make no sense. The ship is beginning to groan in its bones, a deep structural sound that vibrates in your chest. The sound of 46,000 tons of steel beginning to lose its argument with the ocean, and in third class something unforgivable is happening. The gates are locked. Hundreds of third-class passengers, immigrants, families, children, are trapped below decks behind locked iron gates. They're pounding on the doors, screaming as the water rises around them. Officers on the other side are either following orders or simply frozen. The official reason was crowd control, keeping third-class passengers from rushing the lifeboats. The real reason, in practice, was that the people with the least money were given the least chance to survive. Of the 709 third-class passengers, only 174 would make it off alive. Jack and Rose fight their way through flooding corridors, up staircases running with water, through the chaos of a ship actively dying around them. Lovejoy finds them and chases them through the tilting, flooding interior. At one point, Cal himself takes Lovejoy's gun and fires at them through the flooding dining saloon. The mask fully off now, all pretense of civilization gone. They escape him, but they're running out of ship. Up on deck, the scene is beyond description. The bow is deep underwater now, pulled down by the weight of the flooding. The stern is rising. 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30. Lifeboats are gone. The last of them pulled away minutes ago, most of them half empty because people couldn't believe that this was actually happening. The band is still playing on the deck, standing ankle deep in water now, still playing. They will play until they physically cannot anymore. They know they're going to die. They play anyway. Thomas Andrews is still in the smoking room. Captain Smith walks into the wheelhouse, closes the door, and stays there as the windows shatter inward. The ship's lights, powered by engineers who stay at their posts until the very last second, and then the Titanic breaks. The stress of the rising stern becomes too much for the hull to bear. With a sound like the world splitting open, and Cameron puts you right in the middle of it, the full violence and scale of it, the ship tears in two between the third and fourth funnels. The bow section, fully flooded, plunges instantly into the deep. The stern slams back level for one terrible moment, almost as if the ship thinks it might survive, and then the flooding takes hold of it too. The stern tilts back up again, past vertical. People are falling off, clinging to railings, grabbing at each other, and then the stern goes down. Straight down, taking everything and everyone still on it into 28-degree water. The ocean swallows the Titanic at 2:20 a.m. on April 15th, 1912, 2 hours and 40 minutes after it hit the iceberg. And then there is silence, and 2,000 people in the water. This is the part of the film that doesn't get talked about enough, because the sinking, as spectacular as it is almost not the point. The point is what happens after. 2,000 people in the North Atlantic. Water temperature, 28 degrees Fahrenheit. Below freezing, kept liquid by the salt. A human body in water that cold has a survival window of roughly 15 to 30 minutes before the cold shuts down the heart. The ocean around the wreck is dense with people, screaming, crying, calling out names. Jack finds a large wooden panel in the debris field. A section of decorative wall panel, large enough to function as a raft. He gets Rose onto it and stays in the water himself, his arms folded over the edge, holding her hand. There has been an argument about this panel for 27 years. Could Jack have gotten on it too? Cameron has run the tests. At the panel's size and buoyancy, both of them would have caused it to submerge, exposing them both to the water and killing them both. So Jack stays in the water. He doesn't make a speech about it. He just does it. He holds her hand. The screaming around them gradually, horribly, goes quiet, one voice at a time. The ocean is taking people. Jack talks to Rose, keeps her awake, makes her promise, really promise, that she will survive, that she will live a full life. Get old, have kids, die warm in a bed somewhere. He tells her every detail of the future he's imagining for her. He is pouring everything he has left into keeping her alive. And the whole time the cold is closing in on him. Then he gets very quiet. Rose calls his name. His hand has gone stiff in hers. She looks at his face. She knows. She tries to pull him up onto the panel anyway. Can't. She holds him for another moment. And then, and this is one of the most devastating things in the film, she lets go. She watches him slip beneath the surface, and he's gone. In the distance, a lifeboat is moving through the debris, rowing through the dead, Almost nobody is left alive. Rose is barely conscious. She sees the boat but can't call out. Too weak, too cold. She rolls off the panel into the water, crawls across floating debris, finds a dead officer, takes the whistle from his chest, blows it with everything she has left. The boat turns. Back in the present, old Rose finishes speaking. The research vessel is quiet. Brock Lovett sits across from her, and for the first time in the film, he looks genuinely humbled. He spent 3 years and millions of dollars obsessing over this wreck, and it's taken a 101-year-old woman to make him understand what was actually lost here. I never let it in, he says quietly to his colleague. I never got it. I never let it in. That night, Rose goes alone to the stern of the research vessel, the same dark ocean beneath her. She reaches into the pocket of her coat and takes out something she's been carrying for 84 years that nobody knew she had, that she has never shown anyone. The heart of the ocean. She's had it the whole time. Cal's coat. The coat he wrapped around her on deck before she jumped back onto the ship. She found it in the pocket and kept it. 84 years. She holds it over the railing for a long moment. This object that Brock spent his entire career chasing, this thing worth millions of dollars, this stone that outlasted everyone who ever touched it, and she lets it go. It tumbles through the water, catching the light as it falls, and comes to rest on the ocean floor beside the wreck. Returned to where it belongs, with Jack. The camera finds Rose in her bunk, asleep, surrounded by photographs pinned to the wall. We see the life she lived. Horses. Open skies, aviation, adventure, everything she told Jack she wanted. She did it. She kept her promise.